talk, it's time to rock. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome to another midweek show here where I am joined by the original OG of the channel, T-Bone Texas. How's it going, brother?
Good, real good.
Good to catch up with you. We're in the same town here in beautiful New Zealand, folks, and it's officially summer here in New Zealand. But if you've been listening and watching the weather here in our hometown, it's pretty crappy, Carl.
Yeah, it got a bit scary in the afternoon. Thunderstorms and lightning and tornado on the South Island, I think, or the bottom of the North Island.
Yeah. So we hope to have all this wild autumn weather over and done with before our Christmas break, which will be it's coming up soon for a lot of us. So we hope to get that over and done with. But Carl, good to see you. Good to be having a show with you, having a bit of fun, I suppose, on this show, Carl. Nothing too serious on this show. We're going to talk about 8. If you guys have bothered watching the description, or sorry, if you guys have taken the time to read the description, there's 8 things, events, books, people, that have been important in our development as musicians, guitar players, and music fans through the course of our life. And a couple of those points that I'm going to talk to you about, Carl, were always going to be included in any kind of list like this. But I had to actually think of, a few more, because there's so many when you think back, there's so many things in your life that have been critical or important, Carl. So having to narrow them down to a few wasn't too easy.
That's why I wanted to go with 10. 8, obviously 8 really important, and a couple of honourable mentions, because in fairness to the hour and a half block, we could spend all day on it, because, I mean, obviously music's a big part of our life, and there's so many concerts and conversations and books were read, and random people and friends across the other side of the pond, and all sorts that have been influential. But I mean, narrowing it down to some pivotal moments in our life is going to be, I'd be really interested to get your, some of your part of your journey, probably the best word. Yeah, some pivotal moments in your journey.
Yeah, and I'm going to be pretty upfront with you. A couple of them you've heard many times in our conversations that we've had over the years. So, there's going to be a couple there that won't be too much of a surprise for you. And if you're a regular to the channel, you'll probably know a couple of them too, because I've spoken about these things often on our channel. But I'm intrigued to listen to what Carl has to say, because I can't quite remember Carl being specific with determined events. And of course, if you're watching on a replay, we ask you to, if you want to take some time to write down some pivotal events or meetings, etc., that were important in your development, because that's what we like to do here. We like to share. We also want to remind you that if you subscribe to our channel too, please, we'll give you a subscription back. We're on 11,999 subscribers. So we need one more subscriber to get 12,000 subscribers. So you could be that lucky one. If you hit that subscribe button, you could be the 12,000 subscriber to our channel. We can't give you anything for it other than say you're the 12,000th subscriber, Carl.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. From 3 people to 4, now 12,000. That's it goes to show you just the power of consistency and doing what you love, and you guys are great at it.
Yeah, well, yeah, we enjoy it. Obviously, talking about music's a big part of our lives. This channel started off with Carl and I doing exactly what we're doing now with you guys, folks, talking about blues music, the Rolling Stones in particular, and it developed, into the Van Halen show, the Ranking the Tracks show, the Zoso show that we have on here, and any other bits and pieces. We're going to be doing our Christmas show soon too, folks, in a couple of weeks' time. So Carl will be joining us with on that show too, Carl. So that'll be on a Sunday. So we look forward to Carl jumping on. But before I kick off and ask you to describe and give us your first event that you want to talk about, I just want to say thank you for doing those Rolling Stones shows on the channel. Wonderful legacy, wonderful little benchmark here on the channel in the corner there for us to sort of build on moving forward. So thank you, Carl.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm just going through my notes and my book, and we covered quite a bit of ground. Six members, did we? Well, 5 members and something else. Yeah. No, it was. I learned a lot.
Yeah, I did get a comment on one of the shows from somebody from Brazil making a comment saying, why did we not do a show on Ronnie Wood? So I made a comment saying we'll definitely be doing something on Ronnie Wood next year, but we won't be doing anything this year. But definitely Ronnie needs to be negotiated. So we'll do something about Ronnie next year, Carl.
Yeah, I would, if I was to do a Ronnie show, just my personal opinion, it would be sort of a hybrid of the Faces and the Stones.
It'd have to be.
Yeah, because he's really important in the Faces, or even with Beck, and with the Stones, obviously a huge band, but he was a hired gun,
Yes.
and not a songwriter, but a good guitar player, and very versatile with the slide and pedal steel and acoustics, and he was a great match for their later years, but not enough. I don't see enough to justify an hour and a half of him and the Stones.
No. Hugely important though with Beck, as you say, with the Faces and with Rod Stewart. We were going to do Rod Stewart's 3rd album this Sunday, but we've bumped that back to do part 2 of the Beatles anthology show. But that 3rd album, what's Rod Stewart's 3rd album? I should know it because I was going to dedicate it to my mum. Rod Stewart, hold on. Rod Stewart albums. You'll know the one. It's the one that's got.
You talk about the Faces or solo album?
Every Picture Tells a Story. The album that came out in '71. So yeah, Ronnie's contribution to those acts probably more important than I think what he's done with the Stones.
Yeah. I mean, I read about him living with Jimi Hendrix and his artwork, and he was just a very versatile guy and respected in the scene. And in all credit to his career, it would be great to do sort of a start to finish where he was with the Byrds initially and hung out with the scene, and 16 years old at the Marquee, and
true survivor.
Brazil's Ronnie's around. He's just he's waiting. He's coming up.
So we've got a couple of friends in the chat here with us. We've got Arvin, our friend from Canada, and Mission RD100. G'day, brothers. Thank you for joining us. So we're just going to have a bit of fun tonight. We're going to talk about 8 and a couple of honourable mentions of important events, etc., that have contributed to our development as musicians, music fans, and music lovers. So, Carl, I'm going to get you to kick it off, brother. What's your first point? And I'm assuming are they in any particular order?
Yes. So the chronologically, just to show you my journey, obviously
Okay.
from a young person to now, the honourable mentions won't have any order. They'll just be random.
Yeah. Cool. Mine are chronological too. So well
Oh,
done.
cool. Yeah. So 1 to 8 is the journey from 6, 7 years old to now, and then the randoms are just some interesting stuff that we can both relate to. So number 1, just a young boy, and I must have inherited some of my dad's musical taste, because for some reason, I said this on the show before, I just randomly went up to my dad at the age of 6 or 7 and said, "Do you have any Rolling Stones tapes?" And I must have been young, because he said they're in the drawer, and I don't know how to read. And I said, "I can't find them." And then, well, get your yayas out, who was, and I said, "I don't know where it is." And he found it, and then I played it, and the earth stood still, and it was just incredible. I remember that, and a Foreigner tape. And so my brother and
Wow.
I would share a bedroom, and we had one of those JVC single cassette tape radio things, 2-in-1. Remember those? The
Yes.
handle?
Yes.
And the volume had a sweet spot between 0 and 10. There was a sweet spot between about 6 or 7 where it was no static, you know. But actually quite good quality, those old little cassette things, because they were heavy. So they probably had pretty good ampage and probably a good speaker, but I would just wear that tape out. And that was just my first introduction to real music at the age of 6 or 7. And then obviously as a kid, you sort of forget about music, and you're skateboarding and you're playing with the neighborhood kids. But I'll never forget that blast of just really raunchy rock, and just thinking to myself, this is real. These guys are good, and there's a lot of energy, and I like it.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic. Well, that's pretty similar then, Carl, to my story, and I've been lucky enough to have been having heard Carl describe that. So thank you, Carl, for sharing that. So and the next one you've probably heard me discuss many times, and it's a similar situation with Carl. When I was a young guy, I always liked music. Music was always there. I was listening to the radio. It was there. My parents listened to music. It was there, but I didn't really have a band or anything that was mine at all until 1980, when I was at high school, my first year of high school. And I wasn't a late bloomer with music, because, like I say, at intermediate school, we were listening to the Grease soundtrack at school, and that was pretty cool, and going to school discos, and listening to all that stuff in 78 and 79. But it wasn't until 1980 when I was at my nana's place, and I was bored, and my nana had this old record player.
yep.
And my uncle had all these records, and I remember just flicking through these records, and I stopped at the album Beatles for Sale, and I remember I was captivated by the cover, because it's a classic photo of the Beatles taken
Yes.
in autumn in New York, just their headshots.
Yes.
And I remember putting that on the stereo, Carl, and the first song was No Reply, which on face value,
Yes.
probably isn't one of the greatest opening tracks and
Yes.
on the Beatles catalogs. But I remember putting that down and hearing John Lennon sing, "This happened once before. I
Yeah.
came to your door, no reply," and these acoustic guitars. And then that's what grabbed me, Carl. And I remember listening to that whole album, side 1 and side 2, thinking, what have I just heard?
Yes. Well, it's the
I
harmonies as well, eh?
yeah. I, like you said, the earth stood still. For me, and I remember that defining moment being my first moment where I had discovered music, thinking this is incredible, much like yours. But I was a lot older than you at 5 or 6, listening to the Stones. At 5 or 6, I wasn't listening to anything. I was
Yeah.
first year of high school, Carl. So
Well, better late than never. I remember we would have got to obviously inundated with stuff on the radio and pop and Duran Duran and all that sort of stuff. But
yeah,
the fact that the Rolling Stones and the Beatles sort of penetrated our soul is huge, because I wasn't playing an instrument then, and always had pretty average hearing, but I could just feel in my soul that, this is the real deal.
yeah, exactly, bro. So again, some similar experiences there. And again, we invite you, if you want to describe your first moment where you can say that you discovered music yourself. Please share it with us. What's your second one, brother?
Cool. So obviously, so really young, and then obviously you got your brother and you're playing outside, and then I got into intermediate school, and we updated the little cassette player to a little record player.
Yep.
And I don't know how I stumbled upon these, whether from my dad or a garage sale, but I had Abbey Road, Beach Boys, Best of the Beach Boys, and Led Zeppelin 4.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 albums. I would have been between 10 or 12, Marist Intermediate. And my brother remembered me playing them, and it influenced him. And once again, just seminal albums, great from start to finish, and just a lot of enjoyment. Because at that particular age, with intermediate, NXS was big, which is a pretty good band. We had Discos, and we had who was that? Fine Young Cannibals and the Proclaimers, and there was some good stuff. But the reference point to me was these LPs.
Yeah.
Because they just, the artwork, the cover, the smell of the vinyl, the tube amps, the singing, the power, the Gibsons, even squeaky clean Beach Boys, that they had the Fender amps going and the Jaguars, and you could just tell that in Brian Wilson's falsetto voice, you could tell that these guys were serious musicians, and it was just, once again, a great experience. In addition to hanging out with your friends and going to discos and listen to top 40, that was the foundation for me, was those LPs.
Fantastic. Mission RD was 4 years old when he first heard Elvis Presley for the first time. I don't even remember much about it, but he does remember being blown. So again, you guys are incredible to remember your musical loves at an early age. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Mission. Thank you, Carl. So, the power of the albums grabbed you at an early age, Carl. So that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, to this day, there's a huge vinyl revival, because people just love to hold the album, and it's like, is it ceremonial, or to put it on the platter and clean it and read the liner notes, and sometimes they include a poster. And you've got, so the LPs were just something special at a young age.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing that, brother. So the next really important step in my life are two events relating to one guy that I met in high school. So the first event was in 1981. Again, we were at high school, and it was interval. It was lunchtime, and we were down at the back of the field having a cigarette, as you do at high school. And my friend Garth Blomfield had one of those portable cassette players, Carl. You remember, they were really, really important. And, and if you were lucky to have one, or friends that had one, that was pretty cool. And, sometimes if you were working, you'd throw in a couple of dollars to get some batteries, because they would chew through the batteries. But I remember my friend Garth was there, and there were some couple of other people, and he called me over and he said, "Come and listen to this."
Yep.
And I said, "Okay." And he played Eruption by Van Halen.
Oh, wow.
And how that leads into "You Really Got Me," which was a song I knew. I knew the Kinks version. And so when
Right.
it, Eddie played that incredible solo, and then you get the first 4 or 5 bars of uh, uh, the song that follows it, by the Kinks. What's it called? "You Really Got Me." Yeah. And I remember Carl being blown away. I hadn't heard anything like that. And you have to remember, guys, that back then I was a Beatles and a Rolling Stones and bit of a Neil Young fan. So I was listening to that kind of music. I wasn't listening to the power of guitar solos. But that was my first foray into, Led Zeppelin and then Black Sabbath and other stuff. But yeah, that seminal moment in my life, Carl.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, I mean, yeah, it's school. School's important because you bounced off your friends, and some of your friends came from a wealthy background, and they had access to LPs or tapes or electronics.
Yep.
Or one guy with a guitar. So you'd be amazed how influential your friends can be too.
You're right.
A
What's your
good
next
way.
one, brother?
Moving on to high school, boys high. I bought my first LP, which was the Rolling Stones' first album. So I made my sort of first financial investment.
Wow.
and Andrew sends me some pictures from we both a member of Hamilton Old School or something like that on Facebook. And there was 4, or at least 3, but sometimes 4 used record stores in addition to new stores on the main street. And I got hooked in the sense of it was only the Rolling Stones, and I bought their first album, which is the one that came out in '64. And I thought, I'll buy that, which I did, and I'll probably get Rolled Gold from across the street from Cookie, and that'll be it. That covers all the music, and that's it. And 700-800 records later, around that same time, I think I got a guitar. Birthday or Christmas, it was a Segovia, which was a Fender copy, Chinese garbage. But it was around that time that I was not serious, but investigating trying to play the guitar, in addition to being a Rolling Stones fanatic, hounding the stores on a daily basis after school, asking Michael Carey, "You got any new arrivals?" So yeah, that set me on about a 2-3 year quest, and then I'll carry on a bit later on what broke that quest.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Yeah, those secondhand record stores were great places. On a Friday night, I would frequent those secondhand record stores and secondhand bookstores. It was just incredible. Just that journey of catching the bus, meeting a couple of friends, and going on these pilgrimages. Really, really important. Probably the next important phase for me. I don't. It wasn't a guitar that wasn't my first guitar, but it was a guitar that was in our house, and neither my parents could play guitar, so I don't know how this guitar was there. And I remember taking it to my friend Garth Blomfield's place, who was a bit of a guitar player, and I remember him showing me the chords to Twist and Shout, and I remember playing Twist and Shout. Well, a version of it with my friend Garth Blomfield for the first time after listening to the song for a while, and it's only 3 chords, and him saying, "Look, we can play this." And after playing a tennis racket for a while and strumming along, doing what I thought was something to the records that I had, playing with him, playing that Twist and Shout, I remember after that thinking I've achieved something. I felt like, Carl, I had 10 gold records push biking home with my guitar slung over my neck. I thought,
Nice.
man,
Made it.
move over, Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah. Well, school's an interesting place because there's always a couple of guys that could play guitar a little bit better than you, and there was one guy that was classically trained, another guy, and I was always hovering, listening. But you're right. I mean, it was almost like independence or freedom. It was like like an axe or a gun or a tool, a machine gun or something. So liberating was the word. And then the guitar got stolen, and we had our house burglarized. And then for 3 years, I wasn't playing anything. My mum spent all the insurance on herself, and got cleaned out, and there was nothing. And the kindness of my dad's heart, a bit later on when I was 16, he got me an acoustic guitar, and then I started to play more seriously. Like, I'm talking about chord shapes and trying to figure stuff out. And then about a year later, coincided with that acoustic guitar, I was making money and working really hard. And my dad and I went up to Auckland, and I bought a Gibson Les Paul Deluxe.
Wow. Your
first.
Yeah, wow.
At 17. And he'd made a typo in the Loop magazine. He put 1050. And that's all I had was $1,000. Went round to his house, nice guy, and he said, "Oh no, it's supposed to be 1,500."
What?
It wasn't his fault. Someone at the Loop made a typing mistake.
Oh wow!
The 0 and the 5 ran the wrong way.
Oh.
So my dad and I went home dejected, and in the morning, my dad said, "How about we meet him halfway? You just pay me back the $200." So we offered him 1,300. We were still in Auckland.
Yeah.
We were staying with friends.
Yeah.
And we drove home with a Gibson Les Paul in the back of the car. So
Dad to the rescue.
Me, because as you know, as you progress, the quality of your instrument seems to go up.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great story. Arvin vaguely remembers listening to the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, but there was a steady stream of Beatles on the radio and the TV for a few good years after that, correct? And Mission RD1 first saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show when he was 9. And that was the second experience of being blown away. And I thought myself, these guys are just as good as Elvis. Wow.
Yeah. Because in America, and America more so, England a little bit less, but unfortunately not New Zealand. TV was such a huge visual medium with the Ed Sullivans and your they had just bigger cities, bigger population, and breakout artists. And that Beatles on the Ed Sullivan is probably top 10 most watched TV in the history of American television. Apparently,
it's incredible.
Most of the country tuned in. I was friendly with a lot of blacks in Austin, Texas, and they obviously love their gospel, they love their soul, blues, R&B, but they remember the Beatles and they were just gobsmacked.
Yeah.
So we're talking people that are naturally musical, who saw these skinny little white Englishmen just tearing it up. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I remember being blown away by Tom Petty in particular when he was describing that moment too, because he said that he was a Elvis Presley fan and he loved Elvis Presley and he loved music, but he didn't know how he could get into music. But it wasn't until he saw the Beatles when he realized that's how you get into music. You form a group. Yes. And that's how you do it, because yeah.
Sharp. They sound good.
Yeah. G'day, Sonia. Sonia's saying Elvis was better. Well, there's no argument. Elvis is the king of rock and roll.
Kick the door down.
Yeah. The next probably important period of my life is, I went and saw a few gigs over the years. When when I was growing up, I went and saw Cold Chisel play. I remember seeing Split Ends play. Remember going to see a few local bands and pubs play. But November the 7th, 1990, I went up with a group of friends to see Eric Clapton play at the Super Top.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and I remember being really, really excited because I
Was it a Honey and Cigarette tour?
no, that was the Journeyman tour.
Okay.
And I remember being excited with my friends going up to see it because Journeyman had been out and Pretending were hits on the radio, and No Alibis, and just being blown away, and standing there just being, what's the word, attacked beautifully by this music, Carl.
What year was that?
1990.
Wow. Okay. So completely sober.
Clapton.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were asking if no. Well, I probably had a few beers.
No. Clapton was sober.
Yeah. Clapton was sober.
I'm just almost finished his book. He gave up 83, and then he relapsed, and then he,
Yes.
And then the second time he fell on his knees, and that was it. I forgot what year that was, though.
Yeah. So no, he's sober.
Awesome. Well, that's a good story to see a professional act like that. Continuing on, I dropped the Rolling Stones thing, and I started to expand my musical tastes, which was important. I had to do it because people were getting worried about me. One guy that managed a record store told a family friend or someone, they said, "Does Carl realise that there's the other bands out there?" This guy was managing a record store on Hood Street, and up top was a knock shop.
Yes.
And do you remember that?
Yes.
And I went there, and it always smelled like incense, but he had a few odds and ends, but he had Jimi Hendrix smash hits. And
oh, wow.
And I thought, wow, this is another level. This is blues, this is acid, this is R&B, cool cover. This guy's from another planet. And then Disraeli Gears, I bought that, and I was flatting at this time, 17 or 18. All my friends were blown away. They just, A World of Pain and Tales of Brave Ulysses, and they were smoking some stuff, and everyone was just getting blown. Minds blown. And it was all fun and tame. It wasn't no hard drugs, but it was just a few little on the weekend. But the music was so good. It was my friend's brothers would come around to listen to this album. Disraeli Gears was a huge influence, not only on me, but all my friends and their brothers.
One of my favourite albums.
And then, and to tie it all in, then I discovered Peter Green. And Peter Green didn't have that druggy element, but I started to realise, hang on, okay, this guy's playing with no wah-wah, no effects, Gibson Les Paul plugged straight into twin reverb. Okay, this guy's really good. So I got to see a contrast of the psychedelia, the wah-wah, the blues, and then Peter Green's pure blues. And that really started my journey as far as widening the spectrum of what's possible, and Cream, Hendrix, Peter Green, who else? Okay, Free, what else? Oh, okay, Albert King, all that sort of stuff. So
Stevie Ray Vaughan, yeah.
So that was important. I was maturing musically. So
Yeah.
that was an important part there.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Sonia saying Beatles ruled in high school and higher education facilities. Yeah, I get that. So the next period of my life, and I talk about this period often on the show, Carl, 2010 being a really, really important year in my life, because that's the year that I rediscovered the blues and
Nice.
music in particular, and that was spurred on by two things. I used to listen to a news channel called 1ZB regularly, and Mike Hoskins, the breakfast host, now and again would read segments from books that he was reading. And one day I was, probably at work or something, listening, and he was reading some segments about the life of Keith Richards from his recently released biography. And it sounded really intriguing and really, really interesting. And I remember Mike Hoskins saying what a great book it was. And I always appreciated Mike Hoskins' acumen and intelligence, because, he was, pretty, well, even today, pretty smart journalist, the last decent type of journalist that took their careers and the truth telling probably important as an important thing, but that's another story. So I remember buying that biography, thinking, wow, and being really excited. And at the same time, Carl, because I'm linking, this into the next part, I remember I was on YouTube, and YouTube had been out for a while, but so you got to remember this is 2010, so YouTube was still relatively new. And I remember I was just mucking around, and this channel came up, and it was playing a song, some guitaring that was very familiar. And I remember thinking, what is this? And then I read the description and then had a look, and it was the Beano album, Eric Clapton's The Beano album. And it had been years since I heard the Beano album. I remember thinking, I don't even remember it sounding this good. I couldn't remember it. So I remember getting the CD and listening to it and being blown away by the power of that album. So yeah, 2010 and the rediscovery of blues music, the power of the guitar, Carl, and my journey into sobriety, all around the same time.
Yes, it was almost like the rising of the phoenix, shedding old skin and a rebirth.
Yeah, you got it, bro.
Yeah. I should have tied that in myself personally. In addition to Peter Green, same as you, I got hold of the Blues Breakers album, and I thought, wow, this is how's a 21-year-old doing this? This defies imagination.
Oh,
And to this day, it still sounds like as good as it did then. So yes, and then approaching 18 years of age, I was in Raglan, and there was a guy that we could hear him play piano, and I went ahead and we just, for some reason, it was just a nice small community in Lorenzen Bay. He was in Cambrai Road, Cox's Bay area, and I guess maybe I approached him or something happened, but I went into his house, and he did a few things. His name was Tony Della. He was called the Reverend, and he played boogie woogie piano in Raglan and all sorts. Bit of an interesting fella. But he showed me the turnaround chord on blues. I would play E and A.
yes.
He showed me the B where you turn around, go back to the
Yes.
start. And I was like, wow, that's a huge, all of a sudden it opened up a new world. So he showed me that. And then also, he was like you. He loved his F-holes. And he was the first guy I ever saw face to face that played open tuning. He played Brown Sugar for me in open G tuning. So in addition to playing piano, he could play guitar.
Wow.
And he was just an influential guy. We had a really great friendship. He was a bit of a very, very hot-headed, but a nice guy, a lovely wife, model wife, and 3 girls. And we just got on really well. And he was an autograph hound. He collected F-hole guitars, and he got Keith Richards' signature.
Wow.
In Auckland. He just happened to be at the right place at the right time at the motel they were staying at, and Keith appeared, was on the balcony, and came down and signed his F-hole Hofner or whatever it was. So that was huge. And around that same time, I was getting friendly with my uncle, who's got a huge record collection. And he made a point of playing Albert King, Born Under a Bad Sign, which ties in with Eric Clapton with Disraeli Gear's Strange Brew, because we know that the Oh Pretty Woman is note for note is Strange Brew.
Sure.
But with the Stax album, Albert King's huge muscular guitar and the great swing and the bit of funk from Donald Duck Dunn, I was like, I've got to investigate this. I've got to buy this, which I did later. And he also paid me, which was huge, Junior Wells and Buddy Guy, Hoodoo Man Blues.
Wow.
Which was a proper Chicago band that was recorded live in the studio as they would have sounded in the Checkerboard Lounge. It was a huge album. And the intro to Lordy Mama, which Junior Wells sings and Buddy Guy does the guitar, is the opening riff of Strange Brew.
Fantastic.
So yeah, that was a really exciting compact time where a lot of stuff happened all at once, and a lot of stuff was happening. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Right. Well, the next important period of my life is 2015. I think it's 2015. I'm pretty good thinking about dates and times, but I might be a year out. But meeting you, Carl, for the first time, and the relationship that you and I had, because I'd been 5 years into my serious rediscovery of music. So bear in mind 2010. So 5 years, and I'm traveling down this road of rediscovering music that I'd used to listen to, and new stuff, and listening to classic blues that I'd never listened to, like Muddy Waters, listening to all of Robert Johnson's stuff, going back, after rediscovering Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, being blown away by him. But I remember, you and I meeting, and we won't bore people with how you and I met, but the point is we met, and having the first original conversation, we played the guitar together, and we talked about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and it was through your influence, through your discussion, through your involvement, that I went back and listened to the Rolling Stones, because while I had been listening to them over the years and was familiar with the albums,
yes,
I hadn't, in my rediscovery of the music in 2010, given the Rolling Stones a fair shot. And I remember you saying to me, the Beggars Banquet, Andrew, Let It Bleed, Andrew, Sticky Fingers, Andrew, Exile on Main Street, Andrew, It's Only Rock and Roll, Andrew. And I remember going, yeah, you're right. And I knew these albums, and I knew a couple of songs on these albums, but I didn't know every song on these albums. So I remember, going, wow, and coming back and seeing you on a regular basis, because we work together, and sharing with you my joy of listening to these albums again. And I remember saying to you many, many times, I just can't get over how powerful the Rolling Stones are, to the point where you and I have just spent the last 5 weeks talking about the Rolling Stones. So Yeah, thank you, Carl, because to the point now where the Rolling Stones are such an important part of my life, and Keith Richards is, yeah, one of yeah. Thank you, Carl.
Yes, well, that's great. Thank you for that testimony, because that's a really important part of my life, was a kindred spirit. We meet them not all the time, but on occasion. We have friends and we go to parties, but a lot of it's on a superficial level. But when you got friends that buy the albums and ask questions and invest in a turntable and play the guitar, it makes it even more special. Eric Clapton talked about in his book that he had all these friends, but he always had a soft spot for guys that talked about the albums.
Sure.
It wasn't always about getting drunk. It was about, hey, Muddy Waters does a version of this. Did you know that Robert Johnson, so yes. Yeah, well, that coincides. Us meeting was similar to when I met that guy, Tony Della.
Sure.
Yeah, so thank you. So I went to America at the age of 21. I was a bit frustrated with New Zealand and how small it was, and my parents unfortunately split up, and some things happened, and it was always, my uncle lived in California. It was always my intention to go to America, and especially Austin, Texas. Not necessarily Stevie Ray Vaughan, but it was known as the live music capital of the world. So any decent act would always have to pass through Austin. If they didn't make Austin, be San Antonio for the big live acts.
Sure.
But I'm just going to narrow it down to three different artists I saw that blew my mind, because I saw so many bands, and some good, some not so good. But Hubert Sumlin, Howling Wolf's guitar.
Oh.
Just like you read about in the books, sharp suit. He was playing a Gibson Les Paul. He played with no pick, and his turnaround. So Anton's once a year did Blues Week. So all the top blues musicians from around the country were invited to play at Anton's all week. And I was fortunate to see the tail end of the great era of Chicago, because as every year went by, less and less acts came because they were either too old or passed away. Yeah. So Hubert Sumlin was one.
Yep.
As far as proper blues guitar, Johnny Winter was the next act I saw, which just blew my mind.
Wow.
You can see why people love him. He was the real deal. Combination of blues, a little bit of rock, great singer, great front man, the guitar, the tone, the attitude, it was just all there. And lastly, the great thing about Austin, or America in general, is all the outdoor concerts. It's not uncommon to have 4 or 5 months of no rain, so they can plan for these concerts.
Sure.
Just such a big country and landmass, it's blue sky for months on end. So Barbara Lynn, I saw her at an outdoor concert. She's from Beaumont, Texas.
Wow.
Luann Barton did one of his songs. The Rolling Stones, one of his songs called "Oh Baby, What a Good Thing Going." But she was just incredible. She was a black woman that played the guitar left-handed, sang, and just had it all. Just the complete act. So I'll never forget that. Outdoors, singing, hot weather, and just, yeah. So those 3 acts will always be embedded in my mind as the plane ticket was worth it.
Oh, brilliant. Hey, Davey, our good friend from Cyprus is in the chat. Davey Woodford. Good to see you, brother. Yeah, hell of a nice guy. Check him out, folks, on Facebook. If you haven't already, send him a friend request and tell him that the 5150 show sent you. Check him out, because he's an incredible guy. Does a lot of live gigs, puts a lot of live stuff out on his channel, on his Facebook page, so check him out. Mission RD1's got this really, really cool comment. When he was 15, he read the Hunter Davies authorized Beatles bio, and he remember reading the part where one of the Beatles said that anyone could do what they did. and that's the one statement that got him thinking. Yeah, that's the Beatles, always been humble. And Arvin also remembers in '72 that him and his friends, him and his dirtbag friends, all had '72 Keith Richards hairdos. So, you know,
Well, I tell you
yeah,
what, with 72 look, and you mentioned this before of Keith, at the pinnacle of the whole
yeah,
80s sunset themes based on that look. Um, Aerosmith
well,
copied it,
well,
and then you've got,
yeah,
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 he's
yeah.
got scars, the cuts.
Yeah, yeah, clearly Arvin got all the girls. Clearly. um, the next important thing in my life, I remember in 2018, and I've mentioned this a couple of times too on the channel over the years, folks. So sorry for boring you, but really important thing for me to get this connection. I was familiar with a guy called Paul Trenwith here in Hamilton, who was the founder and banjo player of a band called the Hamilton County Bluegrass Band,
Yep.
and really important band here in New Zealand in the 60s and 70s. Played a lot of country stuff, but certainly Paul, in his own right, is an expert on bluegrass music. And I remember striking up a relationship with him and talking to him. And he was always keen to have a conversation. And, you know, he was always keen to loan you CDs. And, you know, we were talking about music on a regular basis. And I never really listened to bluegrass or had a idea of what it was. And I remember just listening to it and the penny dropping and reading a little bit about it. And then I realized, Carl, there was this similarity between what these bluegrass guys and girls were singing about and these black blues artists were singing about in the 1930s. They were coming from, you know, a lot of them from poor families, working class families, where live music was the center of the community once a week. And if you were good enough to play music, you could earn a little bit of money.
Yep.
But everybody was playing music. It wasn't just only the good people, you know, because there was not a lot of entertainment that a family had. So, you know, if the father could get a banjo or a guitar or a fiddle, you know, there was some entertainment there for the family. So, and as you and I both know, and a lot of folks watching, you only need 3 chords and you've got 10,000 songs.
Absolutely.
You know, but I remember getting that connection, and to the point now where I just, you know, think, well, to the point now where bluegrass music is authentic music, and if you go and look at it on YouTube, you can see it today. If you want authentic country music, go and listen to bluegrass, because you're not going to get it with country music, unfortunately.
Yes, in the modern era, you're exactly right. And,
Yeah.
and you're exactly, and this ties in with my next little influence, because part of myself going to America was about connecting the dots, and all the stuff I read about, I wanted to see or learn or maybe find out. And so Austin's a big city, the same size as Auckland, and they have a street called 6th Street.
Yep.
Which is world famous for nightclubs, atmosphere, partying, and lots of bands, but not necessarily good bands. When Stevie Ray Vaughan unfortunately passed away, it was almost like some sort of rites of passage where who was going to be the next big gun. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of good guitar players, but there's only one Stevie, one Jimi Hendrix. And these guys are great, but after a while, for me, it just got to be so much noise. and I thought, I'm, I'm not into this anymore, this drinking and Saturday nights. So, and I was hanging out with some friends and some Latin women, and we had a bit of a falling out. And I just started going to the gym, and then this black guy invited me to his church, as a Southern Baptist church, and I made the connection there where Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, and Buddy Holly, Everly Brothers, Little Richard, they all were reared, groomed, raised in the church.
Correct.
So the music was totally different to the nightclub music, because the nightclub music was in your face, and some of those guys were talented, some not. But when you had full choirs and a proper backing band, it was swing. So it was real music. It was from the heart and soul. And I thought to myself, this is what I've been looking for. My American trip has been worth it now, because, hey, I've seen some great blues acts, but a lot of it was noise. But this is the cornerstone, the foundation of it all right here. We read stories about Elvis when he was a teenager, and him and his girlfriend would sneak out of the house and go to a black gospel church and look through the window, just to get caught up in the spirit. And that was his favourite music, Elvis, was gospel. And so I spent 8 years at these churches, and the amount of talent, some of these singers were like 12, 13-year-old little girls, and they'd blow Beyonce away.
Yeah.
Blow Beyonce away. So that was just important to make that connection for me. And we saw that with the Stones, with You Gotta Move and Prodigal Son. And,
yep.
So that was a really important connection.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Well, the next point that I would like to talk about, it's probably going to be a plug for the channel here, but, I've got to be serious. The 5150 show with you, with Simon and with Brad over the years, and all the guests, the amount of albums that we've listened to, because we rank an album on average, once a week, 52 weeks. So and we have a couple of breaks in between, and summer off. So that's 40 albums, Carl.
Yeah.
40 albums a year that we've listened to over the last 5 or 6 years on the channel. Has been incredible, because there's a lot of albums that I wouldn't have listened to. There's a lot of albums and artists that I wouldn't have engaged in now that I listen to on a regular basis. And there's a lot of albums that I've listened to in the past, Carl, that I've had to renegotiate. And also, when you're listening to music on a regular basis, not for enjoyment, because, there's different ways that you can listen to music. But when I'm listening to music for the channel, I'm listening to it, on a different part of my brain sometimes, So I appreciate the differences that I've developed as a music listener by ranking these tracks, Carl, if that makes any sense to anybody. But like I say, doing this weekly show with you, with Brad and Simon over the years has been, a big part of my continued love of music, because now I've got somewhere to go to talk about it on a weekly basis. So thank you, guys. And one other thing, obviously, not only these guys on the show, the fine, incredible people that we meet on a weekly basis, like Arvin, a very dear friend of ours, and Davey, the people that are in the chat, Mission RD1, who are watching now, Carl, with us and sharing their thoughts. Big part of what it means for me too. So thank you, Carl.
Yes, well, I a huge highlight for me, and Andrew's spoken about this before, but I got on my 10-speed bike, and Andrew had his car full of gas, and he had his Sunday best on, and we went to the workshop, Robinson Sinclair, and tuned live with Sam Cutler.
Yes.
And unfortunately he passed away, but in the music scene, as far as promotion and management, he was huge. So,
Yeah.
and to myself tuning in and listening to you guys critique and your great reviews and your professional atmosphere, some of these random guests have been the highlight of my, it's for me, it's therapy sometimes.
Yeah. Big point, and it is for me too. It's a love.
Great outlet.
Yeah, 100%, brother.
I sometimes chuckle to myself. We've got a mad Kiwi, we've got a convict Aussie, and a big tune Pom, all sharing love music, and another mad Kiwi that has electronics. Just always the fuses always go out.
Yeah. Well done. Well done. What's your next point?
So yes, okay. We've finished the eight really integral parts of my musical journey, and here's a couple of bonus mentions. Just something slightly different. So number 9, the 2 honourable mentions. I'll start with a book. So in Austin, Texas, just a really progressive modern city, and they had a huge library. I guess the library was big because they had the UT University there. Lots of money in Austin. But I was going through a phase where I was reading maybe an autobiography a week on musicians. So I read Rod Stewart, I think it was Vagabond Heart, Otis Redding, Marvin Gaye. But one book that stuck out, and I'm going to buy it, is Al Green, Take Me to the River.
Wow.
And it's just an incredible read because it just sort of showed a lot of these guys in America and coming from really humble, poor backgrounds, the lengths they had to go to for what we call success. Years and years of playing dives, management ripping them off, buses breaking down, segregation, racism. Al Green talks about it in his book, and he talks about it with such a big heart. He just never gave up, and just such a well-written book. And he talked about his family, his southern roots, his hard work coming from a rural farming background. He talked about church and how he'd always feel guilty playing secular music. And we all know the famous story of his girlfriend or someone spilling grits on him, hot grits, and turning his back on secular music and going to gospel. And so as far as musical autobiographies go, that really stuck out. So that was a really great book. And I really enjoyed it. And anyone who wants to pursue it, Al Green, Take Me to the River.
Wow.
Yeah. So, because books in addition to records are really important.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
A record,
yeah.
Get 2 or 3 hours of studio magic. But a book, we get to almost feel like we're traveling on the road with them, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Incredible. A book can give me an appreciation of an album that I'm very, very familiar with, and I can go and listen to it, and you know something about the development of the album or what was going on in the band's life at that time, and you can listen to that album completely different. And we say that often on this channel. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and I've got a playlist set up here where I do quick 5-minute book reviews here on the channel of all the books that I've read, and I'm going to be doing more and more. So yeah, I'm a fan of it too, Carl. Thank you.
Yeah, it just paints a picture of their background, and like I said, Al Green. Everyone sees the TV and the rhinestone suit and the jerry curls and the great music, but they don't see the struggle, and you find that in the books.
Awesome. Awesome.
So your number 9's up. You're number 9 now, are you?
Yeah. So mine. Okay. So when Carl decided that we would do this, he threw in a couple of ideas. So the next 2 couple of things that I'm going to talk about are films that have been important to my life, films associated obviously with music. So The first one that I want to talk to you about, and I remember going to my mum's, watching it with my mum because I knew that she was such a big fan of the Beatles too, was the original anthology series that was screened on TV on a Wednesday night here in New Zealand in 1994, 3 weeks in a row. And you know, the situation that I was living in at the moment, at that period or whatever, just wasn't going to appreciate sitting down listening to or watching the Beatles. So I had to go and share that with somebody that obviously would have understood the importance of that series, and that happened to have been my mum. So just remember being blown away by watching the Beatles talk about their career for 3 weeks in a row, Carl, in 1994. Great, 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 great series. And even now on the channel, we're talking about the Beatles anthology that was released only a couple of weeks ago, and also on Disney Plus. So, you know, they're still in the news, Carl. People are still talking about these great bands.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I mentioned last week, I've got a new lease on life these days. I put the bottle down and I picked the weights up. And,
Good.
And when you're working out, you constantly need to refresh your playlist because the music gets a bit stale. And I've been listening to a bit of punk lately, and not your junky punk, but more your just some good wholesome punk where it's just basically rock and roll with attitude. But I can't believe how many Beatles covers these punk bands do, and they sound incredible. So when we think of, a lot of people think of the Beatles as square and clean cut, but the bottom line is their material, their songs. There's just so much to choose from, and they're all quality. I mean, I was listening to a punk version of Octopus's Garden today, and it was just fantastic.
Wow.
So my final little cherished memory goes back to not a film as such, but on TV. And Andrew probably remembers this, and I was only probably 9, but in New Zealand it was a big deal because we only had two channels, and it was just really exciting. I get the whole country, at least for me, seemed to have stopped because our whole family was in the living room. It was Live Aid, 1985.
Yeah.
3 hours, 24 hours a day, wasn't it, for 3 days?
Correct.
Philadelphia and Wembley. And I was just mesmerized, and I thought to myself, what an awesome idea, and what a great guy Bob Geldof. But I just remember Eric Clapton with Phil Collins on drums and that great piano breakdown with Layla, and just the beautiful weather in Philadelphia. Led Zeppelin came on. There was Ozzy Osbourne with the Black Sabbath reunion. I think there was Judas Priest. There was Dire Straits in Wembley. A lot of the English acts were in Philadelphia, which is quite funny.
Yeah. Led Zeppelin, Tom Petty.
Yeah, Bob Dylan, Keith Richards, and Ron Wood.
Oh, Power Station. Yeah, lots of good stuff. U2.
So it just showed the world that these musicians had big hearts and they're trying to help out Africa. And these guys are just are talented guys, but they're just human. And a small country like New Zealand, it was huge because we love our rugby and we love our community and stuff. But for such a small country, this was, for me as a 9-year-old, it was huge. Just to see the guitars, what guitars were playing, and the clothes, and the girls, and the people in the crowds, and the sunshine, and the cheering, and it's just like a big, colourful circus full of entertainment.
Yeah, I remember watching it too. Yeah, you know, I'm a little bit older than Carl. I was a little bit older, but I remember watching that, and all my friends as well. Yeah, it was an important part of rock and roll history. Thanks for sharing that, Carl. Brilliant.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
you mentioned about a film and just Live Aid just made sense to me. It's just yeah. The world seemed to come together for 3 days.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, the last thing that I want to talk to you guys about was a documentary that was released at the beginning of the year, and I remember here on the channel, Carl. I remember Simon and I and Brad in particular being really, really keen to see it, and we went and saw it, and we got together here and we did a show about it. And I've watched it probably 4 times since. It's the Led Zeppelin documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin. I just think it's incredible the fact that the surviving members of Led Zeppelin got together and they spoke about, the development, how this band formed. Jimmy Page in particular having a big role, not only, I suppose, in this documentary, but probably curating that whole band's legacy and just getting it out there for the fans. Just a great example of how they consider and take their fans to heart, and they respect them, and they're giving them, product. It's really, really good, because there's a lot of artists out there that don't do it. But that Becoming Led Zeppelin documentary, for me, is one of the highlights. And I like a lot of documentaries. The one with Tom Petty that came out in 2008. That's another incredible documentary. It's a little bit like the books, Carl, that we talk about, the Eric Clapton's Life in 12 Bars, another great documentary. You watch these documentaries and then you go back and listen to the music, Carl, and it gives you a different appreciation of this album or the song that you've been listening to for years, Carl. It's just an incredible power to it. And, I love celebrating it.
yes, I know. Great points. You mentioned, I had a friend that was a big Bob Dylan fan. I said something about, what was that album that came out in 75 with Tangled Up in Blue?
Not on the Tracks?
That's it. He says, oh, yeah, that's the breakup album. So a lot of these artists, every album sort of like a concept of what they were going through at that particular time, whether it be, so you're exactly right.
Awesome.
So, yeah, no, I really enjoyed this show. I missed one thing, which was around the time when I was 18, in addition to my uncle playing me a couple of records, was the Steve Ray Vaughan live at the Alma Combo.
Oh.
So finally, and guitar players could appreciate this, because obviously we see a lot of music on TV and we see this footage in the 60s and it's chopped up and the sound quality is terrible. But whoever filmed Alma Combo, they need to get a medal, because the sound was spot on, the camera work was incredible, and it was just huge for a budding guitar player like me. To just inspirational to think to myself, wow, because Andrew and I have spoken about Cream at 68, 69 farewell show, but unfortunately it's just too primitive. So.
Yeah. Well, that's all credit to the Alma Combo production crew, because they've been filming a lot of gigs at the Alma Combo over the years, so they knew exactly what to capture. So good point. Great DVD, Carl. It's really, really important.
Yeah. So well, thank you for sharing that. I just a spark went off, and I thought, because we said what should we talk about the next show, and this just gives us a little background and insight into what we've done for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years,
Yeah, and I've enjoyed it. We've had a bit of fun. Yeah. And if you're watching on a replay, please, if you want to put down, at least one or two important events that have helped you, pushed you along your musical career, please share them with us. Like I say, we're going to be doing a Christmas show here on the channel. It'll be in a couple of Sundays, and so Carl will be joining us for that for a couple of hours, and we look forward to that. But I want to do a special shout out to Arvin for joining us, Sonia, Good to see you. Thank you, Sonia, for jumping on and joining us again. Mission RD100, incredible, you guys, for sharing some of your thoughts. We had Davey from Cyprus here early on as well. So thank you. And if you want to subscribe to our channel, please do, and I'll make a point of subscribing back to you. And I think this might be the last Wednesday show that Carl and I are going to do this year, but we're going to be doing some more stuff together on the channel, Carl and I. Midweek next year, we're going to do a couple of things. Carl's going to get a studio going, so we're going to be doing something here on a semi-regular basis. So thanks, Carl, for hanging out with us, brother. We're going to cruise. And we're going to wish everybody well, and we're counting down for Christmas, and that's an important time of the year to hang out with family and friends. Remember that.
Yeah, everyone be safe, and the people in the Northern Hemisphere with all that snow, have fun, and we'll thanks for everyone tuning in.
Awesome. All right. God bless everybody. We're going to cruise. Catch you later.
See ya.